There is a particular kind of awakening that arrives for a person who has been sleepwalking through the reality of what they had with you. Not the gentle awakening of someone who simply needed more time to appreciate what was present, not the gradual brightening of perception that comes when circumstances allow a person to see more clearly what was always visible to them on some level, but the violent awakening, the one that arrives not through the soft insistence of developing understanding, but through the abrupt and devastating collision with a truth that has been waiting patiently for the moment when it could no longer be avoided. The awakening that comes too late, or that arrives at the threshold of too late, at that specific and terrible moment when the full understanding of what was lost becomes available at precisely the point when the window for doing something about it is closing. When the person who is finally seeing clearly is doing so from the wrong side of a door that is still open, but may not remain so. This person has finally realized what they lost with you, not partially, not in the incomplete and manageable way they had perhaps understood it before, the understanding that acknowledged loss in the general sense while still maintaining the comfortable assumption that what was lost was not entirely irreplaceable, that the specific qualities you brought could in some form be found elsewhere, that time and forward motion would produce a life that did not feel the specific shape of your absence as an organizing fact of daily experience. That comfortable assumption has collapsed. The full understanding has arrived, and it has arrived with the particular force and the particular devastation of something that has been resisted for a long time and has finally broken through every defense that was deployed to prevent it. Jordan Peterson has said that the lies we tell ourselves are always more costly than the truths we refuse to face, that the energy required to maintain a false story about reality exceeds over time the energy that honest confrontation with reality would have demanded, and that the person who has been sustaining a comfortable fiction about something important eventually pays the debt of that sustaining all at once when the fiction fails. This person has been sustaining a fiction about what they lost. The fiction has failed, and the payment is arriving in full, not spread over the manageable installments of gradual understanding, but in the single overwhelming recognition that what they gave up, what they walked away from, what they allowed to recede from their life through the accumulated weight of insufficient attention and inadequate appreciation, and the specific failures of presence that constitute the ordinary human tragedy of not valuing what you have while you have it, that what they lost was not ordinary and cannot be replaced and may not be available to them again. The may already be too late is not a certainty, but it is a genuine possibility, and the recognition of that possibility is part of what makes this awakening the specific and devastating kind that it is. Write "I feel the weight of this" in the comments if you have been waiting for someone to finally understand what they were losing while they still had the chance to hold it. Understanding what produced the delayed realization matters because it speaks to the specific human failure that this person is now confronting, and because the confrontation with that failure is itself the beginning of the only kind of change that might make the too late into not yet. The delay was not the product of indifference. Indifference does not produce this quality of awakening because there is nothing in indifference to awaken. The delay was the product of something more complex and more specifically human, something that Peterson identifies as one of the most common and most costly patterns in how people relate to what is genuinely valuable in their lives. The delay was the product of the assumption of continuity, the unconscious belief operating beneath the level of deliberate thought that what is present will continue to be present, that the good thing in the life does not require active maintenance or genuine appreciation, or the deliberate effort of genuine attention because its continuity can be assumed rather than earned. This assumption is among the most dangerous available to human beings precisely because it is so automatically held and so rarely examined. The person who assumes the continuity of something valuable does not make a deliberate choice to take it for granted. They simply fail to make the deliberate choice to not take it for granted, and the failure of that deliberate choice is sufficient to produce the outcome of genuine loss. This person failed to make that choice repeatedly, not out of malice and not out of indifference, but out of the ordinary human habit of directing attention toward what is threatening or absent or urgently demanding, while allowing what is consistently good and reliably present to recede into the background of experience that does not require conscious engagement. You were consistently good and reliably present, and the consistency and the reliability, which were the expressions of your genuine character and your genuine commitment rather than of any insufficiency in you, became the very qualities that made your presence invisible to the kind of attention that would have recognized and honored it. Peterson speaks about the specific failure of perception that produces this pattern, that the person who does not develop the discipline of genuine appreciation, who does not cultivate the active and deliberate recognition of what is valuable in their life, against the brain's natural tendency to habituate to the consistently present, will always arrive at the same destination, not through dramatic failure or obvious neglect, but through the quiet and cumulative and finally irreversible process of allowing what was extraordinary to become ordinary in their perception while it remained extraordinary in reality. The distance between the perception and the reality is what produces the awakening when the thing that was perceived as ordinary is suddenly absent. And the distance in this case was large enough that the awakening has arrived with the force of something that has been traveling a very long distance. The realization has specific content. It is not the vague and general sense of having lost something significant. That kind of general loss awareness does not produce this quality of awakening and does not carry the particular texture of devastation that this person is currently inside. The realization is specific. It names particular things. It arrives with the detailed inventory of what was present that the absence has finally made fully visible. And the specificity of the inventory is what makes it so completely overwhelming. They have realized the specific quality of your honesty. Not honesty as a trait they would have listed if asked to describe you, not honesty as one entry among many in the catalogue of your characteristics, but honesty as a lived experience, the specific feeling of being in the presence of someone who does not manage the truth of what they see and feel and think for the sake of comfort or convenience or the maintenance of a version of themselves that would be more acceptable to the person receiving it. The experience of being genuinely told the truth by someone who respected you enough to offer it without softening it into something less challenging and therefore less real. That experience produced in them a quality of feeling genuinely known rather than merely liked, that they did not adequately recognize while it was available. They are recognizing it now through the specific daily experience of its absence, through every interaction in which they are offered the managed and softened and strategically presented version of what the other person thinks and feels, and which registers against the memory of what you offered as something qualitatively and undeniably lesser. They have realized the specific quality of your presence, not presence as the physical fact of being in the same space, but presence as the quality of genuine attention and genuine engagement and genuine reception that characterized how you were with them when you were with them. The experience of speaking and being actually heard, not waited out, not processed through the automatic social mechanisms that produce the appearance of listening without the reality of it, but genuinely received by a mind that was actually present and actually interested and actually thinking about what was being offered rather than about what it would say next. This quality of genuine presence is, as Peterson notes, among the rarest things available in human connection. The rarity was invisible while it was consistently available. It is starkly and painfully visible now. They have realized what your specific way of seeing them produced in them. This is the deepest layer of the realization and the one that carries the most weight. Because beyond what you brought to the connection in terms of your own qualities and your own presence, there was the specific effect that your presence had on who they were when they were with you, the version of themselves that existed in the field created by genuine encounter with you, the more honest and more present and more fully alive version that the quality of your attention and your honesty called forward. That version of themselves is not equally accessible in your absence. And the recognition of that inaccessibility, the understanding that they are living in a diminished version of themselves compared to who they were capable of being in your presence, is perhaps the most devastating component of the realization. The but, it may already be too late, is not decorative. It is the honest acknowledgement of a genuine possibility that the person having this realization is confronting with the full weight of what genuine possibility of too lateness means to someone who has finally understood what they are at risk of having lost forever. and it deserves honest engagement rather than the comfortable reassurance that everything will work out and that genuine realization always produces timely resolution, and that the story will arrive at the resolution that the realization seems to point toward. Peterson is unsparing about this. He does not comfort the person who has arrived late to understanding with the promise that lateness is always recoverable. He speaks instead about the reality of genuine consequences, that choices have costs, that some costs are paid in the currency of permanent loss rather than temporary difficulty, that the person who consistently fails to take seriously what deserves serious attention does not always receive the grace of a world that holds the consequences in suspension until the understanding finally arrives. Sometimes the understanding arrives after the window has closed. Sometimes the realization is the thing that makes visible the door that is no longer open, rather than the key to a door that is still waiting. Whether the too late is already complete, or whether what remains is the last viable window for genuine repair, depends on variables that are not fully visible from either side of the connection. It depends on where you are in your own development, whether the growth and the healing and the clarification of your own understanding of your worth has carried you to a place from which return would require the kind of backward movement that genuinely developed people find impossible, or whether you are still in the territory where genuine offering from a genuinely changed person could find genuine reception. It depends on what this person does with the realization, whether they allow it to produce the immediate and honest and fully accountable expression that the magnitude of the moment demands, or whether they manage it, process it, hesitate in the face of the fear that the expression might confirm the too late rather than prevent it. The window is open, but windows do not remain open indefinitely, and the particular quality of this moment, the specific threshold at which genuine realization has finally arrived at the same time that the possibility of its being too late has also finally arrived, is what makes what happens in the immediate future so completely and so urgently significant. There is something this person needs to genuinely reckon with before whatever comes next can be anything other than a repetition in a new form of the pattern that produced the loss in the first place. Peterson is direct about this because the alternative, the well-intentioned reaching toward repair that is not grounded in genuine understanding of what needs to change, is one of the most common ways that the initial failure of genuine attention is reproduced even within the context of apparently genuine repair. The person who reaches toward you from within the realization without having fully reckoned with what produced the failure that required the realization is not yet the person who can offer what genuine repair requires. What they need to reckon with is the specific pattern of their attention, not the dramatic failures, not the obvious moments of neglect or the visible instances of not showing up, but the ordinary, daily, habitual pattern of where their genuine attention went and where it did not go. The pattern of directing the fullness of their engagement toward what was new or urgent or challenging, while allowing what was consistently valuable to operate on the reduced attentional budget of the habituated. The pattern of treating your consistent presence as a feature of the background of their life rather than as the specific and actively chosen and actively appreciated gift that it was. The reckoning with that pattern is not comfortable because it requires the acknowledgement that the failure was not dramatic enough to justify it, but was simply the ordinary human failure of insufficient attention, compounded over sufficient time to produce a loss that is anything but ordinary. They need to reckon with the specific moments, the moments when you were offering something genuine and they were not fully receiving it, the moments when your honesty about what was real between you deserved a corresponding honesty in return and received instead the managed response of someone who was protecting their comfort at the cost of genuine contact. The moments when staying fully present with what was happening between you would have required more of them than they were in the habit of giving, and they gave what they were in the habit of giving instead. Those moments accumulated, and the accumulation is what the realization is finally facing. Peterson says that genuine accountability is not the general acknowledgement of having done wrong, but the specific naming of the specific things that were wrong and the specific ways they were wrong and the specific impact they had on the specific person who experienced them. The general acknowledgement is available to anyone who wants the emotional credit of remorse without the full cost of genuine reckoning. The specific accountability is what genuine repair requires as its foundation. And the specific accountability is what this realization, if it is genuine, must eventually produce. The may already be too late carries a specific instruction for you that is worth naming directly rather than leaving implicit in the emotional weight of the phrase. The instruction is this: that you are not required to hold the door open indefinitely against your own development and your own healing and your own genuine movement toward a life that reflects the full reality of what you deserve. The possibility of too late is not a threat to be managed or a timer to be anxiously monitored. It is the honest acknowledgement of a truth that Peterson would insist upon, that your life has its own trajectory and your own growth has its own momentum, and neither of those things is obligated to remain in suspension while someone else completes the journey to the understanding that should have been available before you were lost. You have been growing through the interval of their insufficient attention and their delayed realization. The growth is real, and it has carried you somewhere that has more clarity and more self-knowledge and more genuine understanding of what you need and what you deserve and what you are and are not willing to accept, regardless of who is doing the asking. That somewhere is not the same place you were when the connection was at its most compromised by their failure to fully see what they had. And the distance between where you were and where you are now is not automatically bridgeable simply because they have finally arrived at the realization that should have prevented you from having to travel that distance in the first place. This is not cruelty. It is the honest account of what genuine development means for the question of what remains possible. Peterson speaks about the tragedy that is inherent in the structure of genuine human experience, that growth and time and the genuine living of a life produce changes that are not reversible, that the person who waited too long to understand what they had is not guaranteed the opportunity to receive what they finally understand, because the person they had may have become someone whose development has carried them to a place where what is being offered arrives too late to find the recipient it was meant for. Whether that is the case here is not yet fully determined, but the honest acknowledgement of its possibility is part of what makes this moment so significant and so urgent, both for them, in the direction of genuine and immediate action rather than continued processing of the realization without expression, and for you, in the direction of genuine honesty with yourself about where you actually are and what you actually want, and whether the door that this person is finally approaching is still open from your side in the way that genuine reunion would require. What genuine repair would require from this person is worth naming specifically because the magnitude of the realization demands a magnitude of response that is proportionate to it, not proportionate in the sense of dramatic or performative. The grand gesture that substitutes spectacle for substance is not what the situation calls for, but proportionate in the sense of genuinely commensurate with the weight of what was lost and the depth of the reckoning that the loss has finally produced. It requires the full and specific accounting, not the general apology that wants the benefit of remorse without the cost of genuine specificity, not the acknowledgement of having done wrong in the vague language that protects the person offering it from the full vulnerability of naming precisely what they did and precisely what it cost and precisely who they were in the moments that mattered and fell short. The full accounting, the specific naming of specific failures with the specific honesty that genuine accountability demands from anyone who is serious about the difference between performing repair and actually attempting it. It requires the honest acknowledgement of uncertainty about outcome. The person who comes to you with the genuine realization and the genuine accounting and the genuine expression of what the understanding has produced in them, but who comes with the implicit expectation that the coming will produce a specific response from you, who comes, in other words, still organizing the reaching around their own need for the reassurance of your reception rather than around the simple integrity of honest expression regardless of reception. That person is not yet fully inside the genuine realization. The genuine realization produces the understanding that you may have moved, that the door may be closing, that what they are offering may arrive too late to find the reception it is hoping for, and the genuine offering is the one that is made anyway, not because the outcome is guaranteed, but because the integrity of honest expression matters regardless of whether the expression is received in the way it hopes to be. Peterson says that the only offering worth making is the one that is made without guarantee of return, that genuine love and genuine accountability and genuine reaching toward repair are always acts of genuine risk, that the person who will only act when the outcome is secured has not yet reached the level of genuine engagement with what matters most in a human life. The realization has brought this person to the threshold of that kind of genuine risk. Whether they cross it is the question that everything that follows depends on. For you, the may already be too late is an invitation to genuine honesty about where you actually are. Not the honesty that performs closure in order to protect against hope, not the honesty that performs openness in order to avoid the guilt of having moved past the possibility of return, but the actual honesty, the one that requires you to sit with the full complexity of what you feel and what you need and what remains genuinely available in you and what has genuinely moved beyond reach, and to arrive at the truth of that sitting without either the wishful distortion of wanting the story to resolve in the most comforting direction or the protective distortion of wanting it to be definitively over, so that the risk of hope can finally be retired. You have done your own work through the interval, your own growth, your own clarification, your own development of the specific self-knowledge that allows genuine choice rather than reactive responding. The version of you that exists now is more equipped than you have ever been to navigate what is approaching with full honesty and full self-possession. Not because the feelings are simpler, they are probably more complex than they have ever been, layered with everything that the interval has added to them, but because the self-knowledge is deeper and the grounding is more solid and the clarity about what you deserve and what you will accept is more embodied and reliable than anything theoretical could produce. Peterson's most important contribution to this question is his insistence that the only honest answer to a situation of genuine complexity is the honest one, not the convenient one, not the comfortable one, not the one that produces the most immediately favorable outcome for the most people involved, but the one that is true, the one that reflects the actual state of your interior when you are being as honest with yourself as you are capable of being, the one that you will be able to live with, not just in the immediate aftermath of having spoken it, but in the longer arc of a life that will be shaped by the choices made in moments exactly like this one. The finally of the realization is significant. It speaks to the completion of a process that was long enough and difficult enough that its finally has genuine weight. This is not a person who has arrived at understanding quickly or easily, or without the specific education that genuine loss provides over sufficient time. This is a person who resisted the full understanding for as long as resistance was available as an option, who deployed every available mechanism of comfortable interpretation to prevent the complete arrival of what has now completely arrived, and who has finally, in the sense of at long last rather than simply at this moment, come to the place where the full truth of what they lost is sitting before them without the protection of any remaining fiction. The finally means the understanding is real. It has the weight of having been genuinely arrived at rather than performed. It carries the specific texture of something that cost its holder something to finally acknowledge, that arrived not because it was sought, but because it could no longer be kept at bay, that landed not gently, but with the force of something that has been held back for a long time, and has finally found its release. Whether the finally came soon enough, whether the but it may already be too late resolves in the direction of not yet, rather than in the direction of genuinely too late, is the question that the next period of time will answer. And the answer will be written not in the realization itself, which is already complete, but in what the realization produces, in whether this person can move from understanding to genuine expression with the speed and the honesty that the urgency of the moment demands, in whether you find, when they finally arrive at your door with the full weight of what they have finally understood, that the door is still open, in whether what they bring is sufficient to meet where you actually are rather than where they hoped you would still be. Both of those things are uncertain, and the uncertainty is real, and it deserves to be held honestly rather than resolved prematurely in either direction. What is not uncertain is the weight of what this person has finally understood. What is not uncertain is the specific and irreplaceable reality of what you are and what you brought and what your presence meant in ways that were not adequately honored while they were available to be honored. That reality was always true. The realization of it, arriving finally and fully and with the devastating force of genuine comprehension, is simply the world catching up to what was always real. Whether it has caught up in time is the only remaining question. And the answer to that question belongs to the two of you, rather than to any story told from the outside. What is yours, regardless of what the answer turns out to be, is the full knowledge of your own worth. That knowledge was present before the realization. It will be present after it, and it is the only foundation on which anything genuinely worth building can actually stand.